Greenberg, how do you do? What now? You cover a lot of different stuff, but here's what I tell people. Like, I was out of town. People ask what you do. It's weird to explain it, whatever. And they're like, "Oh, so you're a football reporter?" I'm like, "Yeah, I am." But we cover everything. The NFL takes up 80% of the sports oxygen in America, and I would say that the Commanders take up probably 85, 90% of the sports oxygen in DC.
Yes.
Does that sound about right to you, Neil?
Yeah, I mean, it's the biggest sport, and it's something that a lot of people have interest in, especially locally. I think that number probably doubles when the team is doing well. The interest is there when the team is doing well. The negative interest is there when obviously they're not doing well. But yeah, I mean, there's a reason why the NFL is considered the best pro sport in terms of eyeballs and interest, et cetera. So I get the same thing, right? Like, are you only covering the NFL? And, I explain to them I cover whatever the interest is of stories. If I can make a case for something, I mean, I'm allowed to write pretty much whatever I want, but we also have to balance the interest, right? And people have a high interest in the NFL right now.
Yeah, man. So they're coming off a bye. I think here's a good question for you because you play the numbers. To me, it's you just can choose optimism or pessimism, frankly. When you look at the playoff seedings, more likely Washington stays as a 7, catches Green Bay for the 6, or falls out and somebody catches them for the 7.
I think it's more likely they catch Green Bay for the 6. Green Bay still has to play Seattle and Minnesota, 2 playoff teams. They also play the Saints and the Bears. So two easier games and 2 more difficult games. So I do think that Washington has a chance to move into the 6th spot, which I think obviously would be really helpful because then they play this, as of right now, the Seattle Seahawks. They'd probably be like a 1.5 point underdog to the Seahawks on the road, probably a 6-point underdog to the Eagles on the road. So it's a big difference between expectations of winning a playoff game. I think that they obviously are in control of their own destiny, but I do think that they actually catch the Packers for number 6.
That's what I've been stuck at. I just think if they handle their business, they're going to be okay. They start messing around and got to depend on other people, that can be a major problem.
Yeah, they only have like one true difficult game left, right? The Eagles on week 16. New Orleans having some changes at quarterback due to injuries. The other 2 games are the Falcons and at Dallas. We don't even know how much that game against Dallas is going to mean. We have to wait and see. But I think for Washington, it might mean something because, like you said, trying to move up a spot, I really do think is a big difference between playing a team like Seattle, playing a team like Philadelphia on the road.
It's interesting you say we don't know what that Week 18 game against Dallas could mean, and that's a fair summary. We don't, but Dallas just beat them. You know what I mean? Like Washington was flat, played a bad game. Dallas just beat them, so I don't even think you can approach that lightly. Now, is there a machination where you get to Week 18 and there's Washington ain't going up, they ain't going down? Yes, but I feel the way Dan Quinn is and the way the organization is operating right now, they wouldn't be we're benching everybody type of team regardless, man.
Well, I think it depends. I think it depends on who you're playing, what the health situation is in the locker room, and like you said, like what's the outcome? What's the risk reward? Do you have a chance to move up? Then yeah, I think you got to play your guts out. But it all depends on what they're playing for. This is a chance to actually win a playoff game in a long time, assuming they make the playoffs. So I think there's a lot on the line here for Washington, especially in year 1 of this. I guess we have to call it a retooling. I don't even know if we can call it a rebuild anymore. But
recalibration was DQ's term.
Yeah, that's fair. It's pretty remarkable, no matter what, that we're even talking about Washington being in the thick of it. And It's funny because you look at like Washington 8-5, they have a point differential of plus 80. Kansas City Chiefs 12-1, point differential of plus 56. If you would have told people coming into the season that Commanders would have a better point differential than the Chiefs at this point, I don't think anyone would have taken you seriously.
Yeah,
for sure. We're talking with our friend Neil Greenberg from the Washington Post. You can give him a follow at N Greenberg, sports writer, stats, all that stuff for the Post. What's funny is this Saints game is just so. There's not a lot of reasons to not think Washington could go down there and win. But I was listening to Russillo's podcast this morning, and he talked about the advantages and disadvantages between looking at kind of traditional stats, passing yards allowed per game versus more modern stats like EPA and just kind of what matters most, yards per play, whatever it is. When you look at this matchup, what statistics do you care about? Because the eye test will tell you it's probably going to be a backup quarterback, and the Saints team doesn't have Olave. They don't have a lot to play for, but Kamara can beat you from any spot on the field.
Yeah, I definitely think we don't know what we're going to get for the backup quarterback. New Orleans offense wasn't good coming into the matchup. They were kind of, I shouldn't say they weren't good. They were an average offense coming into the matchup per metrics that adjust for strength of schedule. Their efficiency adjusts for strength of schedule. I would actually look at the poor defense of New Orleans would be my thing. And I don't look at total yards. I would much rather prefer like yards allowed per play. If you're not into expected points added, I get that. But looking at the team's efficiency on defense, they're 23rd. I think Washington with the 5th best adjusted efficiency offense going against the 23rd, defense, I think is definitely what I would be looking at, because we don't know what New Orleans offense will look like. So I am expecting a big game from Washington. It should be a win for Washington. I don't anticipate any hiccups in this week's matchup.
Do you see any opportunity that Carr plays? We talked to a guy from New Orleans. He said they hadn't completely ruled him out.
He said 30 to 40% chance he plays. And he said the complicating factor is that he's in concussion protocol. Like the hand.
When he said that, I believe he's not playing at all.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got the hand injury too, right? So,
yes,
injury on his non-throwing hand plus a concussion. I don't know. Do you risk it for him when you're 5-8 and on the outside looking in, and it's a concussion?
If I'm Derek Carr, I don't want to play. You know what I mean?
Right. Like, what is it? Concussions. We're learning so much more about concussions and how detrimental they are down the road, especially the more you get, et cetera. Like you said, if I'm Derek Carr, I'm probably want to sit this one out because I have to look. I want to be able to, talk to my kids and stuff like that. I don't know. I get people are gamers and they want to compete, et cetera. But sometimes you have to save people from themselves. And, even if Derek Carr wants to play as an organization, you have to kind of look at him and say, hey, we appreciate that, but you're going to sit this one out because we're going to need you a lot longer than a semi-meaningless game in week 15.
Yeah, I'm with you. Talking with our friend Neil Greenberg. Greenberg, right now, and I'm sure you tiered this. Let's start with Washington, and then we'll get to the other question. Where you got Washington in your personal power ranks?
Tied for 8th.
Tied for 8th. With who they tied with?
Seattle and Pittsburgh.
Okay.
All right.
And I agree with you. I think they have a better chance.
Is that the highest they've been, Neil?
I'm sorry, say again?
Is that the highest they've been in your rankings?
Yeah, that's as high as they've been. And again, I'd have them in that solidly in the 3rd tier where they've kind of been most of the season. But yeah, this is as high as they've been. I am 3.5 points better than an average team.
Have they climbed, or have other teams just kind of fallen?
A little bit of both. I think that we're seeing them. The outlook for them has just become more positive. The preseason expectations are all but gone now. You have to start taking notice of what they've done and against who. A lot of people say, well, they can't win against the Baltimores and Philadelphias of the world, but they're not getting blown out by those teams either, which counts for something. Again, kind of going back to what I was talking about with Kansas City, like the good teams do really well. Point differential is a thing as a barometer of team success. I know a lot of people aren't going to count out Kansas City just because of who they are, but you do have to look at their close game wins and wonder how much longer it's going to continue. Washington's getting credit for not being blown out by a better team, but also, flexing their muscle against the teams that they should as well.
Okay.
Fascinating. So you got Washington at 8. I tend to agree that's a pretty fair spot. Inside the top 10, around the top. But I'm curious. I've come up with a theory that I can beat Vegas. How many teams do you think?
I tried to talk him out of this, Neil.
I think I got something here. I'm telling you, man. I don't think this is that complicated either. I don't think I'm probably the first person to come up with this. How many teams do you think can win the Super Bowl? Seriously.
3, 4.
3.
3 or 4.
Who you got?
Detroit, Buffalo, Philadelphia, and probably Baltimore.
You don't think Kansas City can?
Not name Kansas City.
I don't like Kansas City. I know that they'll probably prove me wrong and create a dynasty and all that. But you're 12-1 with a point differential that suggests you probably should be 6 and 7 wins. That's tough for me to take seriously.
Could some of that be they have scored so many points over the years, and their defense keeps them in games now. And when you got Pat Mahomes down the stretch, if he gets the ball with one possession, he normally scores.
You do, and a lot of it is mythological, right? Like a lot of it is subjective. This because we've seen him do it, and our minds just don't want to count him out. And I get all that, and that's definitely fair. I mean, football is a game with people that do a lot of amazing stuff, and it's very easy to be up 3 points and look down the field at Mahomes with the ball and get nervous and make mistakes. That's a real thing. But again, I look at these teams that are similar to them, and they generally don't perform well in the playoffs if they make it at all. So if Kansas City does it, I'm happy to be wrong, and I'm not going to be the last time I'm wrong. But yeah, I'm not enamored with Kansas City as much as people and the odds makers are.
Is there any part of you?
The average point spread for a team like Kansas City over the past 2 decades has been like a 2-point favorite. Kansas City has been almost a 6-point favorite this year on average in their games, and they're like on a 6-game streak of not covering. Like Vegas is hedging with Kansas City for the exact reason that you said, because people will buy into that and will bet them accordingly. But I'm curious to hear what this model is, because I'm ready for some easy wins.
I imagine you are. I also just looked at, if I did the math and it doesn't look as good as I previously thought, we got problems. Is there any part of you, though, specific to the Chiefs, that, dude, I don't analyze the numbers like you do, but I know my way around football statistics, right? I see all the troubling numbers with Kansas City, but is there a part of you that's like, you know what? These dudes have earned a spot where I'm not looking at the numbers.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, this is art and science, right? Like and I've said this on the show plenty of times, there's a lot that we don't know. Like, I have no idea what the impact of Patrick Mahomes with the ball, 2 minutes to go, down a score, I don't know how to model that. I don't know how to put anything on that. And there's a big gray area there. So absolutely. And it's scary. Like, that's the scary part for me as someone that builds these type of models and tries to, figure out what the real margin of victory is going to be, the total, et cetera. Because I do not know that. I am making an educated guess as to what that number might be. I could be off by a factor of 10. Like, I just don't know. So absolutely. And, But I know that going in, so I probably, as a bettor, don't bet as much Kansas City as maybe someone else would, because I know that there's a big blind spot there that I can't quantify.
That's fair. Let's run through a couple of Super Bowl teams, real or fake. We'll go fast. Obviously, Buffalo is. Pittsburgh, real or fake Super Bowl team?
Super fake. And every time I doubt them, they bite me in the rear. But I'm not a big Pittsburgh guy.
Okay. Ravens, real or fake?
Real. Lamar Jackson, real deal.
Look at you, just betting on offense over defense, even though we know what wins rings. Houston.
Do we? Oh, no.
Yeah, dude.
No.
You know that Houston's point differential is plus 20?
Yeah. See, Houston. Yeah, Houston is. We want Houston to be good, but they're not in that level yet.
And that division is just god awful. Who's better, Chargers or Broncos? This one's not close to me. They got the same record.
I mean, I think Chargers are a little bit better, but Denver's defense is better, so they're probably going to get the nod. But I think Chargers are probably the better overall team.
Chargers and Broncos, both 8-5. Listen to this, Greenberg. The Chargers have a plus 70 point differential. The Broncos are plus 71. Hard to find two closer teams than that. Holy moly.
Yeah, I would have Chargers favored by 1 under neutral.
I would lay
so it's close.
I would lay that point for a lot of money. I think the Chargers.
Yeah, and that's fair. And if I say that they're 1 point difference, then it could be 0. It could be 1 the other way. Like, that's just the way it goes when you have this this fog over everything.
Real or fake Super Bowl contender Minnesota Vikings?
Real, but they're real. I don't like it because I don't trust them for some reason. But yeah, I would say that they're real, but they're fringe. Like you could definitely talk me off of Minnesota. Like if we have a conversation long enough, I would probably be like, yeah, I can see that. You're probably right. Like, and put them in like the next level down. But I would say that they're a fringe Super Bowl contender.
We have to go. Indulge me, Landfill. Please don't get mad at me. You retweeted something earlier today. We're talking with our friend Neil Greenberg, stats analytics for the Washington Post. Inflation report came out earlier today. You retweeted this. You brought this to my attention. Inflation, it never goes away. It's awful. Everything's so expensive, etc. What the hell sense does it make for core inflation, though, which is the number the politicians always want to point out, excludes food and energy? You know what everybody needs? Freaking food and energy. Like, why doesn't that count?
Probably because
the volatility.
These are items that have a lot of volatility due to factors beyond like general economic stuff. Like food prices can be affected by like the season, right? And also supply chain stuff. Energy prices can be influenced by geopolitical stuff. So they tend to take those out.
Pay it. That's so stupid.
We do, yes.
Because we still have to pay it.
We do, but it's trying to get a gauge of like where we are from year to year, and that type of stuff has such volatility. They found that by taking those out, it gives a little bit clearer picture of where actual inflation is.
I don't want to be rude about this because obviously people dedicate their lives to economics and there are professionals in these fields that are really, really academically gifted. I understand that. But clearly they haven't figured this inflation stuff out. So stop trying to exclude the food and the energy because that's a huge part of people's lives.
I don't want to spend $80 on milk.
You know how much bacon costs, bro? You know how much a packet of bacon costs?
A bacon?
Bacon. Just buying a thing of bacon at the grocery store.
Like $7.
Dude, and if your wife likes the butcher cut, it's like 11.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Yo, for bacon, dude.
It's a lot. I tell you what, pistachio peanuts are also very expensive.
Well, they're just pistachio nuts and not pistachio peanuts.
Yeah, you know what I mean.
Yeah, I just,
Pistachio peanuts are very expensive. Pistachio nuts are more affordable.
Dude, cashews? You want a tin of cashews? It's like $17. What
I
planet
know.
are we on?
I know. Nuts are expensive if you like the upper echelon of nuts.
Pause, Greenberg. Pause, buddy. I appreciate you, man. Thank you.
All right, love you guys. Talk to you soon.